Thank you for taking the time to listen to the story. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to our channel. We appreciate it, and thank you in advance. Please leave the name of the city you're listening from in the comment section below. It helps us see our reach in the community. Let's start the story. The pre-dawn sky stretched endlessly before me, as Flight 2317 cruised at 35,000 feet somewhere over Kansas. Another routine red-eye from LAX to JFK. The subtle vibration of the engines and the soft glow of instruments had become familiar after my 7 years in commercial aviation, the last 2 as captain. My first officer, Nathan Walsh, was focused on weather reports while I monitored our systems, both of us settling into the practiced rhythm of a long-haul flight. I remember checking my watch, 3:47 a.m. Central Time. Everything was normal. The weather was clear, passengers were mostly asleep, and we had about 3 hours left before touchdown in New York. I couldn't have known that those would be the last peaceful moments I'd experience. The first sign that something was wrong came when Olivia, one of our more experienced flight attendants, called the cockpit. Her voice was steady, but tense. "Captain Hayes, we have a situation in the main cabin. A passenger is experiencing some kind of medical emergency." Medical issues weren't uncommon on long flights, but something in Olivia's tone made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. "What kind of emergency?" "He's extremely agitated. High fever, aggressive behavior. 2 other passengers are trying to help restrain him." There was a pause, then she added more quietly, "Logan, I've never seen anything like this. He's not responding to any attempts to calm him down." I exchanged glances with Nathan. Standard procedure was to ask if there were any medical professionals aboard and handle things accordingly. "Make the announcement for medical assistance. Keep me updated." Within minutes, Olivia called back. Her voice was shaking now. "Captain, it's getting worse. The passenger, he just bit someone hard, there's blood. And the person he bit is starting to show the same symptoms." My stomach dropped. Through the cockpit door, I could hear the first screams erupting from the main cabin. Nathan and I both reached for our headsets as multiple emergency signals started lighting up from different sections of the plane. "Control, this is Flight 2317, requesting emergency clearance to land. We have a severe medical situation aboard." The response was garbled, fragmented. Something about widespread emergency situations on the ground, multiple aircraft reporting similar incidents. The next hour became a nightmare. Through the reinforced cockpit door, we could hear chaos unfolding. More screams, the sound of people fighting. Olivia's increasingly panicked updates painted a horrifying picture. The infection, whatever it was spreading through the cabin. Those affected became violent, attacking others with savage, animalistic fury. Then came the moment that still haunts me. A passenger used the intercom near the front of the cabin. His voice was eerily calm. "Captain, I'm Agent Russell Davidson, CIA. I have a firearm. The situation back here is deteriorating rapidly. These people, they're not themselves anymore. I've seen this before, in classified reports. Once they turn, there's no bringing them back." My mind raced. A gun on my aircraft was a new complication we didn't need. One stray bullet could depressurize the cabin or damage critical systems. But from the sounds filtering through the door, we were running out of options. "Listen carefully, Agent Davidson," I responded, trying to keep my voice level. "A firearm discharge at this altitude could kill us all. Tell me exactly what you're seeing." His description confirmed my worst fears. The infected passengers were displaying behavior straight out of a horror movie. Mindless aggression, complete immunity to pain, and a drive to attack and bite others. Those bitten quickly developed the same symptoms. What started with 1 passenger had already spread to at least 7 others. Nathan's hands were shaking as he tried repeatedly to get clear communications with any ground control. The responses we received were chaotic, contradictory. Major airports were shutting down. Military installations were going dark. The world below us seemed to be descending into chaos just as quickly as our own situation. I checked our fuel levels in surrounding airports. We had options, but each passing minute reduced them. The infected passengers were growing in number. and the sounds of fighting were getting closer to the cockpit. Through it all, I could hear Agent Davidson trying to organize the remaining uninfected passengers into a defensive position using the drink carts as barriers. Then came the sound we'd been dreading: gunshots. 3 sharp cracks that seemed to shake the entire aircraft. The cockpit erupted with warning lights as one of the bullets punctured the cabin wall, thankfully not hitting anything critical. The plane shuddered, and I fought to maintain our altitude as the chaos behind us intensified. "Agent Davidson, report!" I barked into the intercom. His voice came back, breathless. 3 infected down. They wouldn't stop. Bullets in the chest did nothing, had to go for headshots. "But we've got a bigger problem now, Captain. The gunfire drove them into a frenzy. We've got at least 15 infected breaking through our barricade. I'm almost out of ammunition." I looked at Nathan, seeing my own terror reflected in his eyes. We were running out of time and options. Below us, the lights of small towns dotted the darkness, each one a potential sanctuary or death trap. With no way to know what awaited us on the ground and the situation in the cabin deteriorating by the second, I had to make a decision that would determine the fate of everyone aboard. The next sound from the cabin was Agent Davidson screaming. Davidson's screams were cut short by the sound of gunfire. 2 more shots, then silence. The intercom crackled, and a new voice came through, breathless and terrified. "Captain, this is Amanda Reeves, flight attendant. Agent Davidson he's gone. They overwhelmed him. I have his weapon, but there's only 1 bullet left." My training had covered nearly every conceivable emergency: engine failures, cabin pressure loss, extreme weather, but nothing had prepared me for this. The sounds filtering through the cockpit door painted a gruesome picture: the wet growls of the infected, the desperate prayers of survivors, the thud of bodies against our makeshift barriers. "Listen carefully, Amanda," I spoke into the intercom, forcing my voice to remain steady. "Are there any other survivors with you?" "Yes. 6 of us barricaded in the front galley. We used the drink carts and luggage to block them off. But they keep coming. They're so strong." Her voice cracked. "Olivia is with us and 4 passengers, but 2 of them are showing symptoms: fever, shaking. It's only a matter of time." Nathan's urgent voice drew my attention. "Logan, look." He pointed to our fuel gauge. The needle was dropping faster than it should. The bullet that had penetrated the cabin wall must have damaged something. We had maybe an hour of flight time left at most. I keyed the intercom again. "Amanda, we're going to attempt an emergency landing. I need you and the others to secure yourselves as best you can. Use the jump seats in the galley. Anything you can find to strap in." "Landing?" Her voice rose in panic. "Captain, we just got a call through on a passenger's satellite phone. The airports, they're overrun. Whatever this is, it's everywhere." I knew she was right. The fragmented radio communications we'd been receiving painted a grim picture. Major cities were in chaos. The military was struggling to contain outbreaks across the country, but we were out of options. The next few minutes were a blur of activity. Nathan and I scanned our charts, looking for any suitable landing site away from populated areas. We needed a long runway. Our 737 couldn't just touch down anywhere, but it had to be isolated enough to give us a chance at survival. "There," Nathan pointed to a blip on our navigation display. "Kansas Air Force Base. It's been dark on the radio, but the runway is over 12,000 feet. We might be able to—" A tremendous crash from the cabin cut him off. The entire plane shuddered. Warning lights flickered across our instrument panel. "They're breaking through." Amanda's voice was nearly hysterical now. "The carts aren't holding." I could hear them, the infected passengers throwing themselves against our barricades with mindless determination. The growls and snarls seemed to multiply, growing louder, closer. A heavy impact struck the cockpit door, making us both jump. "Nathan, take control," I ordered, unbuckling my harness. He looked at me in shock as I reached for the fire axe mounted on the wall. "What are you doing?" "We need to know what we're dealing with. Keep us level." I moved to the cockpit door, my heart pounding. "Amanda, if you can hear me, get ready. When I open this door, you and the others make a run for the cockpit. It's reinforced. It might be our only chance." I heard her acknowledgement, faint over the sounds of chaos. Gripping the axe tightly, I pressed my eye to the peephole. The scene in the forward cabin was like something from my worst nightmares. The infected moved with spasmodic motions, their faces contorted in feral rage. Blood stained their clothes and skin, some still fresh, some already dark and crusted. They hurled themselves at the drink cart barricade again and again, heedless of the damage to their own bodies. Behind the barrier, I could just make out Amanda and the other survivors, pressed against the far wall of the galley. The plane banked suddenly and I grabbed the wall for support. "Sorry," Nathan called out. "Wind shear. But Logan, we're losing fuel faster now. Whatever we're going to do, it needs to be soon." I took a deep breath, tightening my grip on the axe. We were at 35,000 feet, traveling at nearly 500 miles per hour, with a damaged aircraft full of infected passengers. Every choice could mean death, but doing nothing definitely would. "Amanda," I called out one last time, "when you hear 3 taps on the door, be ready to run. The rest of you—" I looked back at Nathan, knowing these could be my last words to him. "If I don't make it back in, get this plane on the ground. Save who you can." Before anyone could respond, I heard it, the sound of metal giving way, followed by Amanda's scream. The barricade was failing. It was now or never. I raised my hand to give the signal, knowing the next few moments would determine all our fates. 3 quick taps on the door. The metallic sound seemed to echo through the cabin despite the chaos. I pulled the door open just enough to create a gap, gripping the axe with white knuckles. The scene that greeted me was pure nightmare. The drink cart barricade had partially collapsed. 2 infected passengers were already climbing over it, their movements rapid and erratic. In the dim cabin lighting, their eyes reflected with an empty, predatory gleam. Blood dripped from their mouths and chins, leaving dark stains on their clothes. Amanda stood closest to the cockpit, clutching Davidson's pistol. Behind her, Olivia helped an elderly passenger stay upright while 3 others pressed against the galley wall. The 2 passengers showing symptoms were nowhere to be seen. They must have turned. "Now!" I shouted, swinging the axe at the nearest infected. The blade caught it in the shoulder, the impact sending shockwaves up my arms. The creature barely seemed to notice, its hands reaching for me with terrifying speed. I yanked the axe free and stumbled back, creating space for the survivors to run. Amanda was first, dragging the elderly passenger with surprising strength. They made it through the door as another infected lunged at me. This time my swing connected with its head, and it dropped like a stone. But there were more coming, so many more. "Olivia, run!" I could see her hesitating, looking back at the other passengers. 2 had frozen in terror, unable to move. The third was already showing signs of fever, his skin glistening with sweat. The plane lurched suddenly, throwing everyone off balance. Warning lights flashed in the cockpit. "Losing pressure in engine 2, Nathan called out. "We need to descend." I grabbed Olivia's arm and practically threw her through the doorway. The infected were almost upon us, their blood-stained hands reaching, jaws snapping. One of the frozen passengers finally broke from his trance and sprinted forward, but he was too late. An infected tackled him from behind, teeth tearing into his neck. His screams echoed through the depressurizing cabin, quickly cut short by the savage attack. There was nothing I could do for the others. I dove back through the doorway, slamming it shut just as the infected reached it. The reinforced door shuddered under their assault as I locked it. The cockpit was cramped with the additional survivors. Amanda still had the gun trained on the door, her hands shaking. The elderly passenger had been strapped into my seat, while Olivia huddled on the floor, sobbing quietly. "Status," I called to Nathan, trying to catch my breath. "Bad and getting worse," he responded through gritted teeth. "We're losing fuel and engine power. The hull breach is affecting our pressurization. We need to get below 10,000 feet immediately." I squeezed past the others to check our instruments. Multiple systems were failing. The damage from the bullet hole had cascaded into a series of mechanical problems that were quickly becoming critical. Outside the cockpit door, the infected continued their relentless assault, their growls and screeches creating a hellish backdrop to our desperate situation. There's a small regional airport about 40 miles ahead. Nathan pointed to our navigation display. Single runway, minimal facilities, but it might be our best shot. I nodded, trying to think through our options. The elderly passenger suddenly started coughing violently, drawing everyone's attention. Amanda's gun swiveled toward him, her face a mask of fear. "No!" Olivia protested, moving to shield him. "He's just scared. Aren't we all?" "We can't take any chances." Amanda's voice was hard. "I saw how fast it spreads. One bite is all it takes." "Both of you, stand down," I ordered. "Amanda, keep that gun on the door. Olivia, check him for any signs of bites or scratches. Nathan, start our descent. I'll try to reach the airport on emergency frequencies." The next few minutes were tense. The elderly passenger's coughing subsided, and Olivia found no marks on him. But our aircraft's condition was deteriorating rapidly. The infected outside the door seemed to sense our vulnerability, their attacks growing more frenzied. I grabbed the radio mic, broadcasting on all emergency channels. "Mayday, mayday, mayday. This is Flight 2317 declaring an emergency. We have multiple system failures and are attempting an emergency landing at..." I checked the airport identifier. "Wheeler Regional Airport. Be advised, we have a serious medical situation aboard. The cabin is compromised. I repeat, the cabin is compromised." Static was the only response. The radio crackled with distant voices, fragments of other distress calls, but no clear response to our mayday. Below us, the lights of small towns passed by in the darkness, each cluster of illumination representing unknown dangers or possibilities. The plane shuddered again, more violently this time. Engine warnings blared as we started losing altitude faster than intended. Nathan fought with the controls, his face strained with concentration. "Logan," he called out, "we're going to have to choose soon. That airport's our best bet, but if it's overrun like the others..." He didn't need to finish the thought. With our fuel situation and failing systems, we'd have one shot at landing. If we couldn't use the airport, our only option would be putting down in a field, a move that would almost certainly kill everyone aboard, infected or not. The elderly passenger started coughing again, harder this time. In the confined space of the cockpit, we could all see the beads of sweat forming on his forehead, the slight tremor in his hands. Amanda raised the gun once more, tears streaming down her face. "Captain, we need to make a decision. Now." "Lower that gun, Amanda." My voice was firm but quiet. "That's an order." The elderly passenger's coughing fit intensified. In the dim glow of the instrument panels, I could see the sheen of sweat on his face growing worse. Olivia pressed a hand to his forehead and quickly withdrew it. "He's burning up," she whispered. The decision twisted in my gut. We couldn't risk having an infected person in the cockpit during landing, but executing a sick old man based on a suspicion felt wrong on every level. Before I could speak, Nathan's urgent voice cut through the tension. "Logan, Engine 2 is failing. We're losing altitude faster than I'd like." I pushed past Amanda, taking control of the aircraft. The stick shuddered in my hands as I fought to stabilize our descent. Warning lights crowded the instrument panel, their angry red glow reflecting off the windscreen. Outside the cockpit door, the infected continued their relentless assault, each impact making the reinforced barrier vibrate. "Wheeler Regional, this is Flight 2317 declaring an emergency." I tried the radio again. "Anyone on the ground, please respond." Only static answered. We broke through the cloud layer at 8,000 feet. The moon cast enough light to make out the landscape below, mostly farmland, scattered woods, and in the distance, the faint outline of what had to be Wheeler Regional. But something was wrong. The runway lights were dark. "Nathan, get the approach plate for runway 17. My first officer fumbled through our charts while I kept us level. The elderly passenger's coughing had subsided into wet, rattling breaths. "Here." Nathan spread the chart on his knee. 7,000 feet of asphalt will need to come in from the north to avoid the hills." A violent tremor ran through the aircraft. Engine 2's warning tone changed from intermittent to constant. We were down to one engine, and our fuel gauge was approaching critical. Behind us, the pounding on the door grew more intense, a constant barrage of mindless aggression. "Amanda," I called over my shoulder, "how many rounds do you have left?" "One." Her voice was barely audible. "Just one bullet." The implications hung heavy in the air. If the infected breached the door during landing, or if the old man turned, we'd have a single shot to defend ourselves. I pushed the thought aside, focusing on the approach. "Nathan, deploy flaps to 15. The aircraft shuddered as the flaps extended. "Landing gear down." No green indicator lights appeared. The landing gear wasn't deploying. "Hydraulic failure," Nathan confirmed, his voice tight. "Manual release?" I nodded. "Do it." Nathan pulled the manual release handle. The physical strain showed on his face as he fought against the resistant mechanism. Finally, 3 dull thuds reverberated through the airframe, followed by the green indicators. At least something was working. We were at 3,000 feet now, the dark runway growing larger. I could make out more details of the airport, the small terminal building, a few hangars, and what looked like vehicles scattered across the tarmac. No movement, no lights, no signs of life. 5 miles out, Nathan called. Rate of descent 700 feet per minute. The elderly passenger suddenly seized up, his body going rigid. His eyes rolled back, showing only whites. "He's turning." Amanda's shout was drowned out by another thunderous impact against the cockpit door. The infected in the cabin slammed against it with unrelenting force. 2 miles. Nathan's voice cracked with tension. 1,000 feet. I concentrated on keeping the aircraft stable as we descended through light turbulence. The single working engine strained as I adjusted our approach angle. Everything in my training told me to go around, to not attempt a landing under these conditions. But we had no choice, no fuel for a second attempt, no time before the infection spread. The old man's seizure stopped as suddenly as it had begun. His eyes opened, but they were different now, vacant, feral. A low growl escaped his throat. "Final approach," Nathan called out. 500 feet. The newly turned infected passenger lunged for Olivia, driven by raw, mindless aggression. Amanda raised the gun, her hand steady now. "Wait!" I shouted, but the roar of the engine and the chaos of the moment drowned me out. The gun barked once, the muzzle flash blinding in the dark cockpit. The bullet struck the infected passenger in the head, the impact throwing him back against the instrument panel. Warning alarms blared as blood sprayed across the controls. The plane lurched violently to one side. "Loss of primary controls." Nathan's hands flew across the backup systems. "The bullet must have..." His words cut off as the aircraft pitched downward. Through the windscreen, I could see the dark runway rushing up to meet us. Everything happening too fast. The infected were battering the door, the controls were compromised, and we were coming in hot with only one engine. The ground proximity warning screamed for attention as Wheeler Regional's runway filled our view. In that moment, I knew with terrible certainty that the next 30 seconds would determine who lived and who died. The aircraft pitched and yawed as I fought with the controls, blood-slicked instruments making every movement treacherous. 300 feet above the ground, our rate of descent was nearly double what it should have been. The single working engine screamed in protest as I tried to level us out. "Full flaps," I ordered through gritted teeth. Nathan complied and the plane shuddered violently. Behind us, the reinforced cockpit door gave an ominous crack. 200 feet, Nathan called out, his voice steady despite everything. "Airspeed 165. Olivia and Amanda braced themselves against the rear wall. Through the windscreen, I could see we were coming in too fast, too steep. The dark runway stretched before us, but without lights. Judging our height was nearly impossible. 100 feet. A massive impact struck the cockpit door, the hardest yet. The metal groaned, beginning to buckle inward. Amanda raised the empty gun instinctively, then lowered it, remembering. The ground proximity warning blared continuously now. 50 feet, 40, 30. I pulled back on the yoke with everything I had, trying to bleed off speed without stalling. "Brace! Brace! Brace!" We hit hard. The landing gear compressed with a sickening crunch, but held. The thrust reverser on our single working engine deployed as I slammed on the brakes. Dark shapes whipped past us in the night, abandoned vehicles, small planes tied down on the tarmac. "We're too fast," Nathan shouted. I could see he was right. Even with maximum braking, we weren't slowing enough. The end of the runway was approaching rapidly, and beyond it lay darkness. Another tremendous blow struck the cockpit door. The metal finally gave way, bursting inward. Pale hands reached through the gap, followed by snarling faces. Amanda and Olivia screamed. I made a split-second decision. "Hold on." I yanked the yoke hard to the right, intentionally taking us off the runway. The landing gear struck something solid, probably a taxiway light, and sheared off. The plane lurched sickeningly as its belly scraped across the tarmac, throwing sparks into the night. The horrible sound of metal tearing filled the air. The sudden deceleration threw the infected back from the door opening. I glimpsed pale faces and bloodied hands tumbling away into the darkness of the cabin. Then everything became a blur of motion and noise as we skidded across the airport ground. We struck something else. I never saw what. And the plane began to pivot. The remaining engine tore free with a deafening roar. Warning alarms shrieked as our aircraft twisted sideways, finally grinding to a halt in the grass beside the runway. For a moment, absolute silence fell. Then the emergency lights flickered on, casting everything in a pale red glow. Smoke began seeping into the cockpit. "Everyone out," I commanded, grabbing the emergency axe. "Now!" Nathan kicked open the emergency exit window. Cold night air rushed in, clearing the smoke. One by one, we climbed out onto the crumpled nose of our aircraft. The full moon illuminated the wreckage, nearly 1,000 feet of torn-up runway behind us, and our 737 lying broken on its side like a wounded animal. From the cabin came sounds of movement. The infected were still alive in there, and they would find their way out soon enough. "This way," I pointed toward the small terminal building. "Stay together." We ran across the tarmac, our footsteps echoing in the night. Behind us, the first of the infected emerged from the wreckage. They stumbled and fell from the height, but got back up immediately, beginning their relentless pursuit. The terminal's glass doors were locked. I swung the axe, shattering them. We rushed inside, Nathan and I pushing a heavy desk against the entrance. Through the broken glass, we could see more infected emerging from our aircraft, their shapes dark against the moonlight. "The security office." Olivia pointed to a reinforced door in the corner. "It might have weapons." She was right. The door was locked but yielded to several strikes from the axe. Inside, we found what we needed: a shotgun, ammunition, emergency supplies. More importantly, we found a radio that still worked. As Nathan tried to contact any surviving authorities, I looked out at our ruined aircraft. Flames had begun to flicker around the wreckage, casting shadows across the tarmac. The infected gathered around it, drawn to the movement and noise, their vacant faces illuminated by the growing fire. We had survived the landing, but I knew this was just the beginning. Dawn was still hours away. We had no idea what awaited us in the surrounding town, or if help would ever come. But we were alive, and we had a chance. Sometimes, that's all you can ask for. Amanda placed a hand on my shoulder. Her voice was quiet but determined. "What do we do now, Captain?" I checked the shotgun's ammunition, then turned to face our small group of survivors. "We wait for dawn, we stay quiet, and we pray that whatever's happening out there burns itself out before it takes us all." The infected continued their mindless patrol of the tarmac as the night wore on. Occasionally, one would approach the terminal, drawn by some small sound or movement. But our barricades held. In the distance, I could see fires burning in the surrounding town, and I wondered how many other people were out there, hiding in the darkness, struggling to survive this nightmare. The first hints of daylight were beginning to lighten the eastern sky. We had made it through the night, but the world we knew was gone. Whatever came next would be up to us, the survivors of Flight 2317, united by circumstance and determination to live through this horror, 1 hour at a time.